You probably don't know who Curtis Yarvin is, but I'm telling you, you should. Because Curtis Yarvin is not just a writer or a thinker. He is the shadow magician of the technocrats who are taking over the world right now. And he wouldn't call himself that, of course. You see, he sees himself more as a secular scholar, a delusional realist, a designer of software. But in the mythos of our collapsing civilization, Jarvin is the philosopher priest of the coming digital empire. He is the one whispering into the ears of the technocrats, the man who wants to replace our failed liberal democracies with a technocracy. He offers the cold brilliance of a disconnected magician, the intellect without heart of a warrior. He is a product of our decaying times, a mind without myth, the engineer of a system who sees man as a variable, not as a soul, not as a son of God. And that is precisely where he is wrong. Jarvin wants to build the next civilization, and he has a very good chance of doing so. But he would do so by handing the sword, the burden of power, to the machines, to the technocrats, to CEOs who know nothing of love, of death, of sacrifice. This is not salvation. This is the final mutation of the two-headed beast that is devouring our world right now. Jarvin's not an idiot. He sees clearly that the American Republic is dead, that democracy has become a corpse animated by the ritual of media and manipulation, and that the West has forgotten how to build, how to rule, how to believe. So he has proposed something bold. Someone or some people who are not elected, someone not accountable to our families, to our nations, a king not born out of blood or myth, but of architecture and authority. He wants a CEO king, a digital pharaoh, a monarch of the digital crowd. He calls it patchwork, a network of sovereign corporate states, governed like startups, optimized like code, ruled by the corporate few. And of course, they always see themselves as so competent, don't they? Efficiency as virtue, stability as salvation, and of course, obedience as freedom. And on paper, I see how some, the technocrats, the seculars, the nihilists, it looks elegant to them, but it has a fatal flaw. You cannot rebuild civilization if your kings do not bleed and kneel to his ancestors, to his father, to his celestial father. You cannot restore order with rulers who have never been initiated into pain, into myth, into brotherhood. You cannot resurrect the sacred with men who mock God, fertility, beauty, and algorithmically curate this virtue. Jarvin builds thrones with no altar to kneel to something greater than his brilliance, than himself. He dreams of power without the need of pilgrimage. He wants to install kings who will never crawl through the desert, climb to the top of mountains in cold winter nights, or face the devil in themselves. This is not a kingdom to surrender to. This is a machine with a crown. You see, Jarvin would say he is a secular intellectual, but he is a magician. One of the most powerful of our age, actually. He dissects ideology with surgical precision. He maps the individual regime because he grew up next to it. It listens to him. He dares to name one of the two-headed beasts, to reject the lies of democracy, to expose the machinery of modern control. But he does so without the warrior, without the lover, without the king. He is all too common, fractured brilliance. He has unbaptized power. He worships logic, not the transcendent. He sees history as code, not as a covenant with God, with your ancestors, with your heirs, with the first man and the last. He sees kingship as an engineering problem, not a sacred burden you must accept to carry. And this is what Dicerides warned us of. The state that separates the scholar from the warrior will have its thinking done by cowards and its fighting done by fools. There's no question. Jarvin is the scholar he is made out to be. For those of us who question scholars, intellectuals, it's not because we are anti-it. It's because it's not enough. Scholars, intellectuals today pontificate without even having ever held a sword, without even having to weep for the fallen, without ever walking into the wilderness and emerging a king. So they build a world where the thinking is done by technocrats and the fighting is outsourced to drones, where values are programmed into an algorithm, where virtue is engineered, where ultimately the soul is obsolete. And this is the world of the Antichrist, not because it is evil in intent, but because it is empty of sacred presence. It is a throne built by wizards who have never knelt before God. And Curtis Yarvin is wrong, not because he's dumb, but because he sees only with his eyes of reason. He builds kingdoms without crucifixion. He wants to crown kings who have never known the dark night of the soul. And he calls for order, but offers no meaning to life, to existence. And a throne without meaning becomes the seat of the beast. You were not born to be efficient alone, to be mechanically governed alone. You were born for glory. And glory requires blood. It requires myth. It requires resurrection. So no, we will not serve the machine. We will not kneel to the technocratic Antichrist. We will rise as kings, and we will die as men. Long live the brotherhood of Christ. Long live the soul of men. Long live Christ King. So at this point, you're asking yourself, who is Curtis Yarvin? Well, Curtis was born in 1973, the son of elite Jewish intellectuals in the heart of Silicon Valley. He grew up in Palo Alto, surrounded not by fathers of fire or sacred rites of passage, but by circuit boards, by books, and the early hum of what we would come to be known as the digital technocracy. He is, by every measure, a genius. He reads encyclopedias for pleasure. He questioned his teachers until they grew resentful of him and rejected the modern liberal order before he even had a driver's license. He went to Brown University, studied computer science, and later enrolled in graduate school at Berkeley. Though he dropped out to begin building what would become one of the most ambitious techno-political projects of the early 2000s, Orbit. Orbit wasn't just a new software platform. It was an attempt to rebuild the internet from the ground up. And Jarvis writes under the pen name now, Mencius Moldbug. And his writings, especially on his early blog, Unqualified Reservation, laid the intellectual foundation for what we call now the neo-reactionary movement, or NRX. It is the worldview that combines brutal honesty about the failures of democracy. It is unapologetic about hierarchies, and the cold belief that humans are not meant to govern themselves, that they must be ruled. The early wound in the rise of the shadow magician. You see, Jarvin never experienced initiation. No wilderness rites, no brotherhood, no mentor to guide him into manhood through fire. Instead, he found clarity in code, in control, in intellectualism. Where most boys are called into courage by pain, Jarvin was shielded by his brilliance. His life was not marked by crucifixion, but by cognition. And so his path became that of the unbaptized magician, a mind that sees systems but not souls, a seer of the decay but not a redeemer of men. He built a kingdom of thought but never bled to defend a single one. His worldview is not shaped by war or brotherhood or even prayer. It is shaped by the cold, mechanical logic of the technocratic castle. That castle does not seek resurrection. It just seeks optimization. Influence in the puppet strings. He speaks the language of the CEO of the startup monarch and digital overlord. And because of that, he has the ear of Peter Thiel, the billionaire who believes democracy is incompatible with freedom. Thiel has quickly bankrolled projects aligned with Jarvin's vision, including Orbit. And Jarvin's ideas echo through the elite corridors and post-liberal tech powers, through VC-funded podcasts, through the minds of anonymous Twitter philosophers, through the rise in culture of anti-democratic intellectuals who believe the future belongs to the smart man in the room. And in that room, Jarvin often sits at the head of the table. He doesn't appeal to the masses. He appeals to the few who rule the machines that rule the world. And that's why he's important. So who listens to him and why? See, Jarvin's audience is composed of delusioned techno-elites, political dissidents who no longer believe in elections, and smart, fatherless men who see through the hive mind but have nothing sacred to replace it with. They come to him because he offers clarity in the chaos, a vision of order, a path beyond the collapse. But what they will be receiving is not kingship. It is servitude to a new machine. It is a return not to nobility, but to a managerial monarchy where the ruler is a technocrat, not a father, a programmer, not a prophet. Jarvin doesn't awaken your soul. He seduces your logic. And in the end, his kingdom has no altar, no God. And in the absence, the Antichrist takes the seat. And this is where he is most dangerous. Because when a man follows a magician with no king, they don't become kings. They become subjects, machines, cogs in someone else's vision. But we're not made to run empires of code. Every man is born with a question etched into his soul. Who must I become to carry the weight of this world without breaking? And our culture doesn't answer that question anymore. It just mocks it. It has purposely replaced it with cheap dopamine, with simulated masculine, with synthetic virtue. But buried beneath the ruins of empire and algorithm lies something eternal. You see the 4 sacred archetypes that every man must embody, and the 5th that he must transcend into. This is the map out of nihilism. This is the ladder out of the pit. This is the resurrection path of the masculine soul. So let me show you. The king. The king is order. He is structure. He blesses. He provides vision. He builds. And a true king expands the borders of life wherever he walks. He's not a tyrant. He is a steward, a father, a judge, a man who governs, not for himself, but for our kingdom. But his shadow is the tyrant, a man who obsesses with control, disconnected from love, threatened by strength in others, or worse, the weakling king, who avoids responsibility, hides from the throne, and watches his domain rot. You were born to rule, but only if you first kneel to something greater. The warrior. The warrior is the spine. He is discipline. He is action. He is sacrifice. He chooses what is hard because it must be done. He bleeds so others don't have to. And he doesn't ask the world to be fair. He trains. He sharpens. He shows up. And when the time comes to die, he doesn't run. But his shadow is the sadist, the man who loves the fight more than the cause, who seeks dominion over purpose. Or the coward, the man who rationalizes passivity and who calls fear wisdom. The warrior doesn't fight for ego, he fights for the sacred. The magician is wisdom. He seeks the path. He has a vision. He sees beyond the visible and connects what others miss. He is the architect of systems, the reader of signs. He is the bridge between idea and form, and he makes it reality. He retreats to the wilderness not to escape, but to return with fire. His shadow is manipulator. He who uses knowledge to deceive, who hides behind intellect to avoid risk, or worse, the overthinker, paralyzed by possibility, allergic to action. The true magician is humble because he knows every pattern points back to God. The lover. The lover is presence, beauty, compassion. He delights in what he is and he calls it good. He romances the world without need to possess it. He weeps, he touches, he worships, he creates. But his shadow is the addict, the man who seeks escape and pleasure, who mistakes indulgence for intimacy. Or the nice guy, the man who castrates himself to gain approval. The true lover doesn't chase affection. He radiates love because he knows he is love. And the Holy Trinity, the fifth archetype. When a man integrates the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover, not perfectly, but honestly, sacrificially, and in right relation to God, something extraordinary happens. He dies, not physically, but spiritually. His ego is crucified. His mask burns away. He walks through the fire of his own contradiction and does not turn back. And on the other side of that death, he is reborn, not as one archetype, not even as four, but as the fifth, the Holy Trinity, the final evolution of man. This is the apex of masculine form, the christened man. I don't mean in theory, and I don't mean in metaphor, but the living architect of God made flesh again in man. The man who embodies the Father, the Son, and the Spirit within himself. The man who walks in unity with heaven while standing unshaken on earth. The man who has nothing to prove because he has already died. He does not lead from ambition. He leads from resurrection. He is not driven to conquer the world. He is the world made anew. This is not poetry. This is not parable. This is the final evolution of man. And this is what the beast fears most. Jarvin thinks he is fighting what he calls the cathedral, but he's just replacing one beast with the other. Maybe that's intentional, to make us believe we are winning. But what Jarvin fails to see, or intentionally fails to see, is the beast does not fear another tyrant. The beast can make tyrants. He funds them. He installs them like software. The beast does not fear genius. He has thousands of them at his service. The beast fears only one thing: a man who cannot be bought, a soul set on fire, a Christ King who remembers who he is. That man does not ask for permission. He does not negotiate with the system. He does not wait to be crowned. He is already king because he has died and risen. And when such men rise together, not as consumers, not as politicians, but as archetypical sons of God, civilization will be born again. This is what we are building. This is what we are becoming. I explained in a previous video how this is remembered, how the ancient architecture of God is encoded in our soul, not in philosophy, but in destiny. This is the way Christ returns to earth, not through the sky, but through the soul of every man who answers the call. And you are being called to live. You are the temple. You are the battlefield. You are the portal through which God returns to history. And if you say yes, heaven will move for you. This is what Curtis Yarvin and the Technocrats fail to understand. They believe the problem is governance, that the answer is to install a smarter sovereign, a better software monarch. But the machine is not broken. The problem is the soul is missing. They seek of order, but they have no flame. They speak of kingship, but they have no cross to carry. They build thrones, but they have never died. And a man who has never died can never rule. The response to the nihilists, to the technocrats, is we build brotherhoods of fire, tribes of meaning, crusader families, kingdoms of christened men. And the throne we build is not for power. It is for sacrifice, because that is the only throne God will sit on. So rise. You were not made to be cold. You were made to rise as a king who kneeled only to God. And this is not metaphor. This is the war of our age. And it begins with one decision. Will you remember who you are? To understand Curtis Yarvin, you must not see him merely as a thinker, but as an incomplete man. A man of extraordinary intelligence, no doubt, but also a man fractured at the soul level. He's not evil, he's not stupid, just dangerously disembodied. He's not a villain to be hated, but a warning to be understood. A magician who never bled, a king who never loved, a warrior who never fought, a lover who never surrendered, a man who built castles in the mind, but never planted his flag in flesh. So let me explain Curtis Yarvin through the lens of the 5 archetypes. And by doing so, we will see not only where he shines, but where he is dangerously hollow. The king, the crown without sacrifice. Jarvin is obsessed with kingship. He wants to dethrone democracy and replace it with a new sovereign, a monarch, a CEO, a digital ruler above the mob. In this, he is playing the role of king archetype. But it is a shadow king, because the true king does not merely command. He sacrifices, he bleeds, he fathers, he creates and nurtures new life. He anchors heaven into earth, and above all, he kneels before God. Jarvis King does none of this. His sovereign is algorithmic, sanctifies, uninitiated. It does not come from the mountains. It comes from the code. This is not kingship. It is a throne without crucifixion, and it leads not to order, but to technocratic tyranny. The magician, brilliant, disembodied, and dangerous. And here lies Jarvin's greatest strength. He is a wizard of political insight. He sees the corruption of the managerial state with surgical clarity. He dissects liberalism like a corpse. He is, in many ways, a prophet of decay. But, like all uninitiated magicians, his curse is pride. He does not bow before mystery. He does not fear the sacred. He believes that with enough clarity, enough code, enough architecture of the soul, or the lack thereof, it can be managed. He thinks the world can be fixed without repentance, governed without resurrection, that reality can just be designed. This is the magician's fall. It is the lie of the Lucifer, that the mind alone is sufficient. The true magician bends the knee before the fire of God. Jarvin has no altar, only a computer terminal. The warrior, unforged by fire. There is no warrior in Jarvin. He has never tasted combat, either literal or spiritual. He has never risked his life for a brother, never walked into the wilderness, never fasted, suffered, or stood alone before the abyss. He fights with word, with irony, with cleverness. He is brave in the mind, but not in the body. He is a critic of nations, but not a protector of souls. And so his courage is theoretical, abstract, incapable of blood. And that is why his solutions are so cold. Why he can hand power to machines. Because he has never bled for a people. And thus, he has no idea what must be protected. The warrior fights, not for theory, but for the sacred. Jarvin has never kneeled with a sword in the dirt, never stood between the weak and the devourer. His kingdom has no shield to protect anyone. The lover, emotionally blind, Jarvin mocks romance. He fears beauty. He distrusts the sacred feminine. To him, myth is just mere manipulation, and love is biochemical noise. He's clever, but not tender. He has diagnosed institutional rot, but never wept over the loss of children. The lover is the soul of the world. Without him, you cannot feel the cost of tyranny. You cannot mourn the loss of the sacred. You cannot kiss the earth and cry out to heaven. Jarvin has no space in the system for awe, for grief, for ecstasy. And so, his kingdom will be efficient, but empty, loveless, sterile, dead. He is the continuation of what he criticizes. In the Holy Trinity, the integration denied. The final archetype, the one that unites all the rest, the king, the warrior, the magician, the lover, all bound together in fire and resurrection. This is the Christ archetype, the apex of men, and Jarvin rejects it, not explicitly, but absolutely. He offers no crucifixion, no rebirth, no humility before a power higher than his mind. He builds his kingdom on irony, on logic, on code, but not on glory. And because of that, his technocratic throne cannot hold. It will collapse under the weight of what it cannot understand. It will become not a city of lights, but a prison of mirrors. So Curtis is a warning, not because he's evil, but because he's incomplete. He is the architect of a kingdom without crucifixion. And that kingdom that is being built now by them will become the beast. The man who listened to Curtis. A man once asked one of Jarvin's disciples the simplest of questions: do you want the human race to survive? And Peter Thiel, the billionaire, the genius, supposed savior of the right, could not say yes. He just stared into the void and blinked. This is the world Jarvin builds, a kingdom where the soul is obsolete, where the human future is negotiable, where transcendence is error code, and where meaning is sacrificed for optimization. And the most powerful men on earth are listening to him. So who takes Jarvin seriously? You may think Curtis is just a strange man with a blog. He is more than that. He is the wizard behind the digital throne. And some of the most powerful people in Silicon Valley, in Washington, and the dissident right are hanging on his every word. So let that sink in. These men do not say with certainty that humanity should endure. They program exit strategies to Mars, but they cannot say, yes, man is sacred, he should live, because they have forgotten what man is. They see him as a variable in an equation, as a vessel for intelligence, as a node in a network, but not as a son of God, not as a bearer of glory, not as an image of the eternal. If the people building your future can't even say the human race deserves to exist, then why would you let them lead? And Curtis Yarvin is their prophet. And now you ask, if not Jarvin's cloud king, technocrat king, then who? If not the technocratic sovereigns, then what rises to take its place? What throne could possibly stand against the two-headed beast that devours nation and wears democracy like a skin mask? So what did Curtis Yarvin get right, and what he could never build? Curtis is not insane. He's not wrong when he says the old world is dead. He's not wrong when he says democracy is a decaying lie. He's not wrong when he says institutions are hollowed out, rotten skin. He saw the parasite. He saw the priest of progress in stolen robes, preaching equality while engineering submission. He called out one of the beast's heads to distract you, while the other one sat at the throne. But what he could not see, or choose not to tell you, is that he cannot build is what comes after. He diagnosed the disease he had no cure for, because he had no altar, no myth, no blood-soaked sacrament, no tribe, no fire, no God. Jarvin builds machines, but we must resurrect men. Take the map of the soul, the test the technocrats fear. There's a reason the algorithm fears us. There's a reason our videos are shadow banned, throttled, mocked, because we're not selling distractions. We're not pacifying you. We're not neutering your soul, nor sterilizing your spirit. We are initiating you, crowning you, unleashing you, and it all begins with a single act of courage. Take the 5 archetype map of the soul. This is not a simple quiz. It is a mirror, a map. It will show you where your king is hiding, where your warrior has fallen asleep, where your magician has been gagged, where your lover has gone numb, where your trinity, your divine purpose, has been buried beneath shame and noise.